Welcome back to Cosmic Comics. Today I'm going to look at Thanos' origins as given to us in the Thanos Rising Volume 1 series published in 2013. Before I dive into this, I have to mention that there are some retconning shenanigans that take place regarding the early history of the Eternals of Titan. I'm going to gloss past those details today, but might cover it in more detail in a future video. The focus today will remain on Big Purple. We learn about Thanos' origins in Thanos Rising, a 5-part limited series written by Jason Aaron. And here we are, at the beginning of a character I will probably need to discuss time and time again. Let's get started. The story opens with Thanos' return to Titan. We're told that he returns once every solar cycle. This trip home isn't about reveling in past conquest, but reminding Thanos who he is. He pulls back the rubble to reveal the grave of his mother before thinking back to his birth. We're shown the day of Thanos' birth. It's a difficult birth for both mother and child, as Thanos is born tangled in his own umbilical cord. One might even say he was born flirting with death. Upon seeing the child, the doctor apologizes that the child is going to live. And Mentor, who has yet to adopt that name and currently calls himself Alars, and just for the continuity of this story, I'm just from now on going to continue to refer to Mentor as Alars for the rest of the story. Alars tells the doctor to keep his hands off of his son. Alars picks Thanos up and is impressed by how strong he is, the child who refused to die. Sui-san wants to see her child, and it's interesting to note the contrast in reactions between mother and father upon seeing Thanos for the first time. Alars was overjoyed. Sui-san reaches for a knife. Her first words to her child are, "We have to kill it. We have to kill it before it grows." Alars holds his wife back and calls for the doctor to sedate her. Sui-san warns them that Thanos has death in his eyes, and if they don't kill it now, then all of them will die. As she goes under from the sedative, she claims that Thanos isn't her son. He's a monster. This line between Alars and Sui-san is something that will carry over throughout Thanos' life, with his mother seeing only his faults and his father being incapable of seeing his faults. Thanos has a hard time in school. He's introverted and always worried about being picked on for his unusual appearance. Most of the time he prefers to defer people to his extroverted brother, Eros. Thanos is overjoyed when the day finally comes that other Eternal children ask him to join them in playing some childhood games. As he runs off, we see that Thanos was sketching the body of a dead creature. This is the earliest indication of a personal obsession with death. Thanos attempts to show an interest in his family and their lineage. In particular, he wants to do a project for school that will detail why his appearance is different from that of any of his peers. He asks his father for help with the project, but he can't be bothered to pay attention to the boy. Thanos leaves Alars alone to work, and here we see the beginnings of Thanos' thirst for knowledge and a desire to know more about himself. We're shown a young Thanos visiting his mother. It's implied that she has been held in captivity as a mental patient since the birth of her son, and that Thanos visits her regularly. He complains that he keeps having the same dream about being a newborn baby and somebody keeps trying to kill him with a knife. And then he grows up and he extracts an unspecified form of revenge on the person with the same knife. Foreshadowing? In order to cure the bad dreams, Thanos stops sleeping. Alright, problem solved. Some of the girls at school are talking about Thanos when one in particular sticks up for him and lets the rest of the girls know that Thanos' skin color is more than a simple mutation. He just doesn't know it yet. The rest of the girls are worried about Thanos catching them staring at him, but the new girl wants him to see them staring at him. This is Death. It's interesting that they chose to introduce her as interacting with the other kids on the schoolyard, as traditionally, and as it will be established later in the series, Thanos is usually the only one who can see Death. The day comes at school when Thanos has to do his first dissection, and he leaves the classroom in tears. He's outside crying, and Death approaches Thanos and lets him know that dissection will get easier with time. Thanos responds that he never wants to cut open a living thing, and Death goads Thanos on, telling him that he will never be a great scientist like his father if he can't cut open one dead animal. I think it's very telling that Thanos states, then maybe I'm not. Maybe that's not who I'm meant to be. This is a very real indication here that without the intervention of Death, Thanos might have ended up as somebody completely different. That would make a really nice what-if issue to read. Death suggests that he take some time to think about it and that she's willing to share with him a special place where he can go to think. Thanos ends up taking several of his classmates to the place indicated by Death. He's excited to share his new discovery with the other children, who are somewhat skeptical. As they continue through the cave, the roof collapses. Thanos spends the next 3 days digging his way out. He figures he must be getting close, and then he runs across the same kind of lizard he was asked to dissect in class. As he continues forward, he notes that there sure are a lot of these lizards around today. He treats the lizards as friends, promising not to eat them, and then follows them on the way out. Once he finally breaks through to the surface, Thanos is expecting to find his friends. He does so, but all the other children who followed him into the cave have all been eaten by his lizard friends. Once we transition back to the school, we learn that this is the first time that a child has died on Titan in 200 years. The other children are very much aware that out of all the kids who went there, the only one who survived is Thanos. And years later, many would mistakenly believe that this was the moment that Thanos' inner monster had emerged. One of those same kind of lizards that ate the children comes up to Thanos. He wants to kill it, but he hesitates. Death arrives and lets him know that there's nothing wrong with the way that he feels. She tells Thanos that if he really loved his friends, he would hold nothing back. Thanos, the child who never wanted to slice anything open, returns to the cave and slaughters all of the lizards. This is the time and place Thanos overcomes his fear of killing. Something that starts to become more clear is that Thanos didn't go looking for Death. She came looking for him. The next issue opens at a dissection table. We are shown that Thanos has changed dramatically. Moments after his school instructor finishes giving out directions, Thanos has already completed the assignment. Additionally, he has labeled 12 points of interest not covered in the lectures, cataloged the creature's stomach contents, and determined its cause of death. The point being to show the extreme contrast between Thanos in the previous issue and who he has now become. Before leaving the classroom, Thanos points out that the creature had no offspring and seemed to exist for the sole purpose of being cut up by Thanos. This marks the end of Thanos' formal education. As he leaves the lab, he professes that just as he has learned everything that he can from that creature on the table, he has also learned everything that he can from his instructor and thus takes his leave. Death is waiting out in the hall, where we learn that Thanos has the highest grades in the history of the school, and he's learning faster than they can teach him. Thanos begins self-educating and researching things that he couldn't learn at the school. Death visits Thanos' new lab where he is doing countless experiments on all sorts of creatures. He most recently captured a cave ape. Death wants to know if he's ready to experiment on a creature so similar to himself. Thanos expresses shame over killing the creatures in the cave. He doesn't want to be known as a mindless savage. Thanos' creed is only to shed blood in the pursuit of knowledge. We're told that by age 12, Thanos had explored all of Titan. By 13, he had walked upon the surface of Saturn. By 15, he mapped the stars of 1,000 galaxies. He looked everywhere, but nowhere could he find the answers that he sought. He didn't slice creatures up out of cruelty. With each cut, he hoped to find more knowledge and maybe an answer as to who he is and why he is here. Why is Thanos different, and what is his destiny? After hours of work, Thanos fails to find any new answers and is left with nothing more than a butchered ape. He is disappointed that he failed to find out anything new at all. Death makes the suggestion that Thanos might be looking for answers in the wrong place. Thanos thinks that she's implying sex, and she quickly shuts that down. Thanos gets angry and starts destroying his own equipment. He lets her know that he doesn't know where else to look. He goes on to up the ante. He stops experimenting on animals and begins experimenting on sentient beings, and he kidnaps 2 of his classmates. He lets his first victims know that he will remember this moment forever. This was the first act of murder in the history of Titan. In fact, the concept of murder didn't exist on Titan until Thanos killed his classmate. This is at least what we're told, but then it's contradicted literally on the very next page when Kronos insists that every being in creation that can have blood spilled inherently knows what murder is. Kronos insists that the children were abducted or murdered, but Alars insists that nobody on Titan is capable of such an act. Of note, Sui-san is out of the mental hospital and back home. Although she remains silent, it is implied that she knows, or at least suspects, that her son is the murderer. She goes as far as to tell Thanos that she knows what he is, but he insists that she doesn't because he does not yet know himself. Thanos decides it is in his best interest not to find all of the answers. He's burying the dead when he confides in Death that he's realized that some questions are just best left unanswered. She points out that it looks like he had a lot of fun. Thanos is insulted and insists that he's only a scientist and not a butcher. Thanos claims that this is finished and that he's never going to kill again. And again, we see him attempting to leave Death behind. 2 weeks later, we're shown that Thanos is once again digging a hole. The implication being that he has already killed again. He's ashamed of it, but this time he's ready to admit that he enjoys killing people. Death tells him not to feel any shame and that there's nothing wrong with embracing his true nature. Thanos then asks her to run away with him. Thanos pleads that Death is the only one who understands him. He has a dream of the 2 of them finding their place in the universe together. He's got a bit of a crush on her and asks her to hold him just one time. How telling is it that Thanos asked for Death's embrace, but just like last time he tried to physically get with her, Thanos is rejected. She tells him love is not for the lost or weak, nor the mewling or hopelessly pathetic. Love is not for children or cowards. There is an implication in her words that if Thanos grows up and finds purpose and strength, then he might one day be worthy of her love. Thanos suggests that he could force her to love him. She informs him that he might be capable of doing that to some, but not to her. She then continues tearing him down, calling him little boy god who is frightened of his own shadow and unworthy of love. She tells him that he's already met the only love he's ever going to know, and that he needs to finish burying it. The implication being, the only love Thanos will find is death. There can be no doubt now. Thanos is in love with death and willing to follow her orders. Thanos now serves death. The next time we see him, he's changed some more. Of note, he has started creating his own tools of death, a hobby of sorts that he will continue throughout much of his life. He tells us that he's killed 17 people, mostly children, but he has added a couple of his professors to the kill list. He's willing to tell his latest victim what he was unwilling to admit to himself previously. He kills people because he likes it, and it's the only time he doesn't feel alone. Why is this? Thanos never feels alone with death by his side. Thanos starts to think of himself as a monster. He claims he didn't ask to be born this way, and that all he ever wanted was for somebody to love him back. It's probably true that nobody really gave him a lot of love or showed him a lot of affection. His mother wanted him dead from birth, and his father pretty much ignored him. And it was years before he made friends at school, and when he finally did, they all ended up as lizard food. The one thing Thanos gets wrong is assuming that he was born this way. He started off as somebody who had no interest in violence, but since Thanos now feels that he was born this way, he's decided to take things back to the source and to discover the answers about who he truly is. His source. His mother. Somewhere during his search for answers, Thanos finally does go mad, and his next actions defy logic. He kidnaps his mother and decides that the key to finding an answer to why the way he is inside her. Thanos has convinced himself that once he cuts the answers out of Sui-san, he won't have to be a monster anymore. After killing his mother, Thanos claims to remember the day he was born. He remembers her attempting to kill him and tells his mother that he's sorry that they wouldn't let her do it. The dream Thanos shared with his mother that he was having over and over again while she stayed in the mental institution has finally come to pass. After murdering his mother, Thanos leaves Titan for the outer rim of the galaxy. This is an area with minimal law enforcement and the type of place that Thanos could go about his business completely unnoticed. For a long time, Thanos doesn't kill anybody that we know of. In fact, he creates life. While traveling on the frontier worlds in the Crab Nebula, Thanos finds himself a wife and has his first child, a son. Several months later, he gets up, grabs a bag of stuff, and leaves. It's written that he closed his eyes before walking away, insinuating that there was some regret. We're told later that Thanos became weary of being a father. Thanos signed up for a menial job on a pirate ship. On an early raid with them, the crew was hesitant to attack a Shi'ar ship until Thanos showed that he could block their communications. During the raid, the pirate captain sees that Thanos is watching instead of taking a hand in the killing. The captain insists that every man on his crew kills for their pay. Thanos reminds him that it was his ingenuity that allowed them to make the raid in the first place. The pirate captain insists that they all need to get their hands dirty and belittles Thanos before the rest of the crew by stating that he lacks the heart for killing. Thanos agrees and walks away. Although, as he turns away, Thanos claims he will never have a heart for killing. Thanos then travels from planet to planet with the pirates and attempts to find love. This ends up being a futile exercise as none of them live up to the love that he shared with Death. He mates with a variety of races and leaves behind a trail of half Thanoses. We're told no matter the planet, no matter with what alien race he chose to mate, the offspring of Thanos were born healthy and strong, and they all looked like their mothers. This last line is important because it keeps Thanos' singular and unique appearance and whatever it is that makes him special together. Whatever it is that wasn't transferred to any of those children. All the while he travels with the pirates, the captain still belittles Thanos for not having the stomach for violence and calls him the Prince of Cowards. No matter how many people or races Thanos saw killed, or how many women loved him or children he left behind, none of this was enough to make Thanos care. The more women loved him, the more they disgusted him. The more the pirates killed, the more he pitied them. Occasionally, Thanos would think back to his life on Titan, but then only of his mother and of his first love. But he tried not to think of Titan or Lady Death. Life is change. The pirate captain informs Thanos that he needs to leave his ship at the next port and not return under threat of execution. It's time for Thanos to kill or get off the ship. Thanos, unafraid of a challenge, returns to the ship after the next shore leave, and the captain moves in to personally execute his unruly crewmen. He attacks Thanos, and as the battle rages, Thanos points out that the captain is afraid of his intelligence. Thanos then takes a sword straight to the gut. As the captain holds it in place, he tells his prey about how he's going to tear out his guts and use them to decorate the ship. Thanos tries to be witty and tells the captain that he doesn't have enough guts to decorate a ship this size. This is it. Captain Groll raises his sword to decapitate Thanos. In the moment, time slows down and Thanos reflects on his life. After all the suffering he's caused and endured, it would all amount to nothing if he dies right now. Thanos was seemingly content with his fate in this moment, hoping that afterwards he might finally get some of the answers he's always wanted. But when he opens his eyes, Thanos is surprised by the reality surrounding him. He's now holding the sword and is being hailed as the new pirate captain with Groll split open before him. In this moment, I gotta say, I feel a little bit cheated. I get the initial, twist. Awesome, coolness, but another part of me is, I want to know what actually happened. This is a pivotal moment in his life, and this marks a change. This begins a pattern to Thanos' life. He has these manic tendencies that often include a mixture of crazy plans and mass killing sprees or universe-ending shenanigans followed by long stretches of reflective solitude, melancholy, and planning. Thanos has killed once more, and for the first time in his life, he has people looking up to him. Sure, the pirate crew, they follow him out of fear, but this is Thanos' first leadership position. Shortly after this, he returns to Titan to claim his heritage and visit the grave of his mother. While visiting the grave of his mother, he is visited by Death for the first time since he left. Thanos is at a complete loss as to how she knew he would be there. Death claims that she has always known Thanos better than himself, and this is where it starts to get good. Thanos says to Death, "I've missed you," which is true, but she calls him out. She leans in close enough that Thanos probably thinks he is going to get a kiss when she asks why he stinks of alien women and bastard children. Oof. She follows it up by asking if sowing his oats all over the place makes him think that he's a man. He doesn't deny it. Instead, he attempts to explain that having children and living as other men lived, he hoped these experiences would give his life a sense of fulfillment, but none of it did. None of it worked for him because he was only in love with one woman or concept, death. Once again, Thanos attempts to embrace his love, but she dodges out of the way. For a moment, she allows him to hold her hand, but even then, she mocks him. "You think I've just been sitting here waiting all this time for your touch?" Thanos, blinded by his love, says yes. And he goes all in. You never go all in like this. He insists that the two of them need each other and that he is the only man in the universe for her. Oh yeah, you keep telling yourself that, big perp. For a time, Thanos traveled the Outer Rim, and he was free of Death's grasp, but the moment he killed somebody, that moment he had to return home to Death. That murder put Thanos under her thumb once more. Thanos offers to give her all the things that she wants if she would be his bride. But before she is willing to commit to something like that, she turns the tables back on Thanos and insists that before she gives herself to him, he needs to prove that he belongs only to her. In order to do this, Thanos is tasked with fixing all of his infidelities. How might one go about doing that? Well, in this case, it's by personally killing every lover he's ever had and all the children he sired. I love this panel right here. At some point, partway through killing his past lovers and his own children, we see Death embracing Thanos. We see her manipulating him in a way that nobody else seems to get away with. She dangles the promise of future love before him like a carrot on a stick. Thanos keeps track of the number of people he has killed up to the day that he tracks down his last child. Thanos has now completely erased all of the life that he brought into the world. After this, Thanos begins to actively work on developing his powers. Within a few months, he is capable of using energy projection to destroy entire cities at once. Killing in this manner was impersonal and tidy, and like so many other parts of his life, as soon as he found that he was really successful with it, it made things dull. And here we have this villain's fatal flaw laid out before us, for time and time again, it will be Thanos who defeats Thanos. After he's done, he asks one of his crew named Bones how many planets they have slaughtered. Bones' reply is more than he could ever count. A lone survivor from the latest planet rushes in and begins stabbing Thanos, and Thanos just looks bored by the ordeal and smacks the man aside as though he were a fly. The man expresses his anguish over all that he's lost, and Thanos tries to explain that it's not personal. Their world was chosen at random, and I would almost argue that this makes the atrocity even worse, as the alien wants to know for what reason did they all have to die then? Thanos replies, because of love. The sole survivor refuses to believe that his family died for love. Chronologically, this panel is the first time Thanos is referred to as mad, when the creature calls him Thanos the Mad and curses him to suffer for 1,000 years. Thanos claims he already suffers, and that if anybody wants the killing to stop, then they need to ask her if he has finally killed enough. The creature wants to know who he needs to ask. Thanos says she's just inside the ship, just inside his captain's chambers, where she likes to lay down and listen to the screams. Yeah, because that's not super creepy at all for the guy who just witnessed genocide and lost his whole family. No, yeah. Okay, once again, the creature wants to know who is it that he needs to go and ask about the killing. Thanos insists that the creature find out by going to ask her if he has destroyed enough lives to satisfy her. The creature does his job, and he walks into the ship. He finds the captain's chamber, and inside is a woman in the bed, but not the one that Thanos is thinking of. This guy comes back out, and he retches on the ground. Thanos wants to know what she said. And the creature lets him know that she said nothing. But before he can finish explaining why she said nothing, Thanos kills the creature. When Thanos returns to the same quarters, Death is waiting for him in the doorway. While Thanos is slaughtering billions, if not trillions, Kronos approaches Alars, who is visiting his wife's grave. Kronos tries to explain that Alars might not be capable of stopping Thanos if he goes after him, but Alars is blinded by some kind of mental block where he still refuses to believe that any Eternal of Titan could kill their own mother, but more specifically, that Thanos seemingly can still do no wrong in his eyes. Kronos confronts Alars about this inability to accept what his son has done, and he asks if he's prepared to lose others because he failed to protect them. He goes on to point out that they know that Thanos is leading a fleet of pirates who are razing and pillaging every world they find, and Kronos warns Alars that the day will come when Thanos and his crew will come home. And when that day comes, he needs to be prepared to kill his own son. Alars doesn't like the suggestion from his father, and he asks him to leave. Meanwhile, Thanos decides to take one day, just one day off from killing, and Death comes tracking him down to see what he's doing instead. She finds him working on a device that looks like a throne, and he asks her if she came to berate him for his laziness. Death toys with him, suggesting that she might have arrived to fall into his arms and cover Thanos with kisses, with the possibility of sexual pleasures. But he has become immune to her false advances. This is new. Any time in the past, and he would have fallen for these tricks. She makes it clear that as far as she's concerned, the only thing keeping them apart is his reluctance to embrace his destiny. Thanos still seems reluctant when she asks for more, wondering when will it be enough. This hesitancy shows, I think, that Death is right, but only because Thanos hasn't accepted the destiny that she chose for him. Again, we see hesitancy within Thanos, as he doesn't appear to enjoy killing mass numbers of people. Thanos is tired of playing games. He wants her to give him a number. How many people does he have to kill before she's willing to be his bride and his portion of the bargain is finally fulfilled? She gives him an answer. Once you stop asking how many, once you hold infinity in the palm of your hand, once you are a god who has everything, then he may have all of her that he wishes. This is 100% a nod to the Infinity Gauntlet, and one could rightly say that with this being thrown in, that it was Death stepping in to nudge him forward on his first steps down that path. There is another implication also in Death's answer that if Thanos is truly a god who has everything, he doesn't need to ask her permission anymore. Thanos roars that he already is a god, but Death begins to walk away and calls him a liar. And she lets him know that he won't be the man for her until he isn't afraid of anything, even himself. Looking back, she takes a moment to manipulate Thanos into his next course of action. The man for Death isn't afraid of destroying the world on which he was born. This enrages him, and he calls for his guards to arrest her. Then the two guards look at him dumbfounded as they try to explain that nobody else is there. The last time we were shown that nobody else can see Death except Thanos was when that creature came and found a dead body in his quarters. There was some room for interpretation there, like maybe Death had stepped out for a minute, but this time it leaves no doubt. Nobody can see Death except Thanos. Thanos wants to know why nobody else can see her, and she tells him to stop acting like a child. She insists that he already knows why nobody else can see her. These lines sum up the relationship between Thanos and Death and explains why everybody else thinks he's mad. Death says, "No one can ever see me. No one ever has. No one but you, Thanos." Thanos is certain his men have seen her, but she's quick to correct him. "Oh, they think you're quite mad. They see you arguing with thin air or sometimes dragging rotting corpses into your bed chambers, only to sob and beg them to touch you." Thanos seems to be having a hard time accepting all of this. But then she drops another hammer, like, "What is my name? We've been friends all your life. So what is my name?" Thanos stutters, but refuses to even guess. Death pulls off her skin and reveals who and what she really is. Death. The only thing Thanos ever loved, and she claims to be the only being in all of creation who could possibly love him back. I don't know about that. Maybe the only woman he might be happy with, but we've already seen plenty of women who loved Thanos. The problem was he didn't love them back. The revealed version of Death approaches Thanos and tells him that the day will come that she will love him, and eventually the two of them will destroy all life. As she comes near, Thanos reels backwards as he tries to back away from her. Death asks him what's wrong, and in response he sears a hole through her skull. Thanos turns and begins to run away. He should have shown a little bit more courage as he misses an opportunity to give his love a kiss. Thanos goes on a tear through the ship, killing several crewmen on his way to the ship's combustion chamber. Some of them attempt to stop him out of fear that he has gone completely mad and he's going to kill them all. Thanos enters the combustion chamber and stands on a small platform. One more step will end his life forever. As he stares into the void, he recognizes something. He's willing to kill anything, even his own family. But the one person he refuses to kill is himself. Metaphorically, Thanos is willing to send anybody else into death's embrace, except himself. But that isn't what she wants. Death wants him alive. She tells him suicide is never the answer, murder is. Thanos has a moment of clarity where he thinks that it was her who turned him into a monster, but she corrects him by pointing out that he was born a monster. All she did was help out. There is an implication that this is not the first time she has done something like this, and she tells him that he is the most beautiful potential she has seen in many centuries. In the galactic timescale of billions of years, that isn't very long, and therein lies the implication that she has seen greater champions at some point in the past. But Thanos doesn't care about that. He desires her love now. She makes it clear that she is willing to give it, but first he has to do something for her. Thanos knows what he has to do. It's time to go home. It's time to destroy Titan. Thus begins the final issue of Thanos Rising. Upon arriving at Titan, Thanos does not hesitate. He attacks. We're told that thousands die in the first wave of explosions. Considering the Eternals' extremely slow reproductive cycle, I really would have been surprised that thousands of Eternals existed on Titan. But also, when we consider the fact that Titan began with only a handful of Eternals, I have some serious concerns about... Never mind. Of note, without being told who is responsible for the attack, Alars, he already knows that his son has come home. Death continues to urge Thanos forward. She takes joy in the destruction and suffering that's surrounding her. As Thanos prepares to embark onto the surface, he tells his raiding parties to stay behind and let it be known that this world is his to kill. Surprisingly, Death attempts to feed Thanos' ego as he leaves the ship, insisting that they should have already recognized him as ruler and king. Thanos seemingly buys into this deception and proclaims himself to be a god before unleashing his destructive power upon Titan. As Death and Thanos stand staring across a nearly lifeless Titan, she tells us too much. Death has been manipulating Thanos towards this moment his entire life. She sees this moment as a type of rebirth for the Titan, and Thanos reminds her that he didn't do this out of hatred for his people or his family. Thanos destroyed this world like he had so many others. He did it out of love, the love of death. Thanos thinks he has finally won his prize, her affections, but as always, there's always one more task that has yet to be accomplished. Thanos stands face to face with his father. Alars soapboxes about what a fool he was, but Thanos cuts to the chase. His father has made a weapon, and Thanos, he wants to see if it works. In the end, Alars doesn't have the heart to kill Thanos. I've always felt that this moment was weak. I really felt that he should have had the gumption to pull that trigger, and that's fine because Thanos has no qualms about showing his father his mistake. He takes the gun and puts it to his head and pulls the trigger. Afterwards, he chastises his father for not building a better gun and claims that he himself did build a better gun. And I really can't take this too seriously either because Thanos fails to kill his father with the blast. So they both survived the other guy's weapon. Congratulations. Thanos' sole motivation for keeping his father alive, he wants Alars to witness his wedding to Death. Thanos has grown tired of Death's games and begins to make demands of her, not asking but insisting that she swear essentially to belong to him and love him. He doesn't treat her as an equal in this exchange, and it really feels like Thanos is referring to property instead of another sentient being. Alars makes a final attempt to show his son the futility of his ways by showing him that on the screens all over the lab, that on every wavelength, there is nobody here but just the two of them. And I think it's fine that Alars is scanning every known wavelength, but it ventures on the side of silly that he insists that some of the wavelengths he is scanning are imagined by him. If imagined wavelengths are a thing, then it goes without saying that Lady Death could exist on a wavelength he failed to imagine. It also goes without saying that he may not have developed a way to scan for manifestation bodies. But our two star-crossed lovers, they have it all figured out. Death's presence is hidden from everybody but Thanos. In a world of magic, alternate realities, etc., Alars falls back on science. For the sake of the reader, not his son, he goes on to brag about his scientific achievements. He goes as far as to claim that nothing can hide from his science. One might argue that he is lying to his son. Alars claims that nothing can hide from his science, while his son hid right under his nose, murdering various Eternals of Titan and eventually his own mother. And Alars, where was his science then? What I'm saying is that Alars has a known blind spot to cover any perceived negative traits from Thanos. I wouldn't put it past him from using scientific instruments to show what he wanted to show his son and nothing more. Alars continues to insist that Death is not present. He implores his son to keep looking at the scans from his scientific instruments and wavelengths. He insists once more that Death does not exist except in the mind of Thanos. Okay, back it up. I see one pretty glaring plot hole here. How did Alars plan for this moment? How is it that he set up so many different kinds of scanners that were ready and present? He didn't even know that his son supposedly saw a woman who was not present until a few moments ago. How is it that none of these scanners were damaged during the attack on Titan? I think this is further evidence that deep down, Alars knows that his son is telling the truth about Death. Thanos is one life away from completing his mission. Death offers herself to him for all eternity for completing this one simple task. It's inconceivable that he would now stop his quest in this moment, but yet we see the Titan pause. But we knew this was coming. The real weakness here is that Thanos doesn't have the heart to kill his father. If he did, there would have been no hesitation. Thanos has thousands within his crew who could witness his marriage. All of this is farce. Alars insists that Thanos chooses to kill so he can choose to stop it. Yes, we played out that storyline on the Outer Rim. This is territory that was already covered. Thanos knows this, and Alars' words should fall on deaf ears. In the end, Alars claims that it is not Death that Thanos loves, but Thanos. This approach appears to be working. Thanos clutches his head and attempts to deny his father's words. Death, feeling decades worth of work slipping between her fingers, begins to act more desperate. The kiss Thanos has destroyed planets for. She's ready to give it to him. She reaches out, offering the Titan her embrace. In the end, he seems uncertain. He blasts his father once more, but once again he doesn't kill him. Oh, my. Thanos says that he's gonna make his father watch as he kills countless others, hoping to someday prove his father wrong about Death. Or is this nothing more than an excuse for Thanos to keep killing? If his obligation to Death is complete, maybe that means that Thanos would have to stop killing? Or whatever. The point being, who stops Thanos from reaching his goal this time? Well, once again, Thanos stops Thanos. In this moment of crux, Alars says a prayer of sorts to Kronos. He requests that he kill his son for him. Thanos turns his back on Death, and as he walks away, she clutches at him once more. Thanos claims that after everything that has transpired, he is alone. It's an odd contradiction that he does this while talking to somebody who has been with him his entire life. Death readily points this out in the next panel, but it's too late. Lars has planted that seed of doubt, and Thanos questions his own sanity, and that moment, Death gives in. The two lovers embrace and kiss. Afterwards, Death is ready to destroy the next world. Thanos, on the other hand, is given pause. He's either shocked or disappointed that her kiss is cold. This, to me, is the answer that the Titan isn't crazy or mad. If he was, he would have felt nothing, but Thanos experienced the cold kiss of death, and afterwards chooses to follow behind her. We switch back to where the story begins. Thanos is visiting the dead world that he once called home. While here, Death calls out to Thanos and reminds him that, hey, this is where we had our first kiss. But the tables have been turned in the years since he destroyed Titan, and it's now Death who begs for Thanos' kiss. He no longer even acknowledges her presence. Instead, he turns his back on Death and walks forward, alone. When I read this bit, I always think back to Death previously in the series having told Thanos that love is not for the mewling or pathetic, but here she is, clutching, mewling. I'm going to stop and play the devil's advocate here for just a moment. It may very well be that Lars was correct in saying that there was nobody there. Thanos might very well be correct that he has always been alone. Death can also be correct in stating that she has always been there for him, but I think that the final judgment, in my opinion, goes back to the playground. Death revealed herself to all those girls in the yard when she first appeared before Thanos. Death started their relationship by sticking up for him and being there for him when nobody else was. From birth, Death chose Thanos as her champion and molded him into her herald. The cosmic abstracts are a hard concept to wrestle with. Sometimes they are presented in Marvel as nothing more than ideas, but powerful ideas. Ideas that are so strong and so universal to the reality that they're associated with that they take physical forms for a variety of reasons. Are these physical forms real characters, or are they just ideas given form via representational storytelling? Marvel is seemingly giving us both interpretations over the years, and at the end of this series, Thanos himself appears to be struggling with this very question. After all, when Death appears before him, she can never do so in what we would consider a true form. Instead, any current form is either in Thanos' head or it exists as a manifestation body. When Thanos finally gets his kiss from her, I am pretty sure that he wasn't looking for the embrace or kiss of an energy fractal acting as a representation of Death. A more in-depth discussion of the M-bodies and the cosmic abstracts will have to wait for another day. Next episode, I'll be moving forward in the life of Thanos, beginning with his first appearance in Iron Man, Volume 1, Issue number 55. Thanks for watching Cosmic Comics. Feel free to hit any of the buttons below. I'm out.